Let's call to order the meeting of the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission for Monday, January 18, 2021. Wow, got that right. 2021 seems strange, but here we are in a new year. So, move along to item B, roll call. Members, Chairperson Keepers is here. Vice Chairman Thino.
Here.
Alderman Stevens.
Here.
And Lieutenant Sobichek, I hope I got your name right this time. Closer? Okay.
Sobiak is here.
Sobiak, okay, all right. Sorry
Sobiak.
about that, Mike. I'll get it right by the time you come to a couple more meetings here. So, and then Bridget is an excused absence tonight. So, and I believe that's all we have for the roll call. Let's move on to C, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of both C and D in mass.
Okay.
Can
How
I
about-
interject on that? It's
Yeah,
my
do we want to move
understanding that,
F1 up, Dave?
yeah, sorry, I'm having some audio glitches here. It's my understanding that item F1 is being requested to be moved up. I presume that was Craig Stevens, right? You wanted that moved?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
have
let's do
officers
that.
that are on duty right now. So.
Yep, let's move F1 to the front of the list here. Then we'll go E1 through 13 and then back to F2 and 3. Do I hear an approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, our agenda is approved for tonight. Let's move to item D, approval of Monday, November 16th, 2020, Traffic, Bicycle, Pedestrian Commission meeting minutes. Do I hear an approval?
Move to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
Motion been made and
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Let's move on to F1 then, informational request by Alder Stevens for a report by GBPD on 2020 traffic enforcement activities and recognitions. Go ahead, Craig.
All right. Well, thank you. I think I'll pass it over to the lieutenant so he can talk about the 2020 traffic enforcement activities. And then I
Okay.
know we have two other traffic officers over here, and I'm sure they could chime in as well.
Yep. Tonight we have Officer Knudsen and Officer Young, I believe that is. My screen's pretty small, but he's waving to you right there. And we have Officer Noah Hoovelmans joining us as well. Officer Hoovelmans is a one-year veteran with the department. He started solo patrol on January 5th, 2020 on the afternoon shift. So in his 1 year on afternoon shift, he wrote more citations than any other officer besides a traffic enforcement officer during 2020. And we wanted to take time tonight to recognize his dedication to traffic enforcement and making the streets safer, especially during Green Bay's Slow Down Green Bay campaign from last year. So I created a letter that I believe all the members of the committee received, and we'll be giving that to Officer Hoovelmans to put in his personnel file, acknowledging his dedication to traffic enforcement during the last year. On top of that, just to go over some numbers from 2020, between all officers, we had a total of over 7,000 traffic citations issued and almost 6,000 traffic warnings issued during the 1 year period. So all officers were actively enforcing traffic laws on the city streets, trying to make them a safer place for everybody.
That's a good thing because as most of the commission members will attest to, most of the things we hear, one of the major problems in the city of Green Bay is speeding and traffic issues or whatever. So it's really a good thing that you've got the officers dedicated to that, Lieutenant, because it's a real issue that we hear quite often on this traffic commission of, of those issues. So thank you for your efforts, officers.
And continuing with 2021, we're going to continue the Slow Down Green Bay effort and really try to focus on problem areas to reduce traffic crashes and That's the main goal, is to reduce traffic crashes, especially where property damage and injury occur. That's the whole goal behind the traffic enforcement, is just to make the streets safer for everybody. And one of those is to reduce accidents. Obviously, that makes them safer.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Mr. Chairman, Officer Sobiak, would you give me those figures again as to the amount of citations and the amount of warning tickets?
The citations were 7,823 traffic citations, 7,823, and then the warnings were 5,877.
How does that compare with other years?
I didn't research other years, specifically with traffic citations. I did look at OWIs compared to other years, and we were a little bit lower for OWI citations this past year, OWI arrests. But that sort of directly correlated with COVID and the months that we did not have extra patrols out solely for alcohol enforcement. And that's the same months that the state was pretty much shut down. April, May, part of March, our numbers went down. But when everything opened back up, our numbers went right back up to where we were. So within 5 years, we were on average for OWIs. And I would imagine our traffic enforcement was probably about the same. But I did not look up the numbers for the past 5 years for traffic.
I think it would be valuable for members of the commission to know what the pattern has been. I certainly congratulate Noel on his fine work as a rookie. That's tremendous. I'm a neighborhood association president and past chairman of the Green Bay Neighborhood Organization, which is the umbrella organization of all 41 neighborhood associations. And I can tell you, as Matt just indicated, speeding is the #1 issue. It's not homicides, it's not burglary, it's speeding. Neighborhood presidents are pulling their hair out because of the speeding problem. But if you could, Lieutenant, if you could supply us with maybe going back 2 years as to the total citations and total warnings given, that would give us a better feeling as to what is happening out there, and if in fact Slow Down Green Bay is paying some dividends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can put that together, and I can probably send it out tomorrow. I'll put together 5 years and see what, where we are compared to 5 years ago and every year since.
Okay, thank you very much, Lieutenant.
You're welcome.
Is Officer Hulman going to be on the Zoom call that we congratulate him?
Yes, I'm here.
You are there, okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Lieutenant, did you give him the letter that was drafted?
I did not give him a letter yet because he didn't know anything about this until probably 10 minutes ago.
Sure. So maybe we should take a moment. We can read it to him. So
Yeah, please do.
I have a copy of it. You want me to read it?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so Officer Noah, I won't say your last name because I'll screw it up. So, but from the Traffic, Bike, and Pedestrian today, January 18th. This is regarding traffic enforcement. Dear Officer, the Green Bay Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Committee would like to recognize your efforts in traffic enforcement in 2020. Among your colleagues, you issued the most traffic citations in 2020 for a non-traffic enforcement unit. A total of 224 traffic citations. Green Bay is committed to making the streets safer for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians, and in 2020, the Slow Down Green Bay campaign will achieve this. It is no doubt that your efforts made Green. Thank you for your hard work and determination. Sincerely, the commissioners for Traffic, Bike, and Ped.
A
Yeah,
little round of applause. So congratulations. Thank you, Officer Noah.
You.
I won't want to butcher your last name, but thank you for your efforts. As I said before, traffic enforcement is very important to the city, and it was a good thing, I think, in the last 2 years when we got the traffic enforcement unit back on the road. It's been a good thing. So Good job, gentlemen, officers.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Craig, you got anything else you want to add to your?
No other comments on my end, but does a
Okay.
traffic unit, do they have any comments? or-
Yes, we'll
From
get to them. Yes,
2020?
officers, go ahead.
Just want to say, well, obviously the numbers probably are up from our unit, being that 2020, we had 2 more additional officers doing full-time traffic enforcement duties. Some of the things that were complained on in 2019, a lot of the school zones were not an issue this year and didn't have the enforcement because of the COVID. And with that, we've been trying to step up some other areas, such as commercial motor vehicle enforcement, getting familiar with some of the commercial motor vehicle laws and enforcement, and teaming up with the state patrol and some of their inspectors to kind of deal with that. Also, we've been out on the highways a number of times on the interstate 41 and 43, kind of doing some slow down stuff there as well, because those accidents tend to have a higher propensity for injuries and things like that. So, school zones, maybe not so much this year, but different areas with pedestrian enforcement and some other things like that. In conjunction with, we still have the task force doing the speed zone and the seatbelt enforcements in the different areas and jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Craig, great idea to bring the officers on board to the meeting. I know you've talked about it a couple times, so
Oh, yeah,
thank
I
you for
wanted to
making that
bring them
happen.
a while ago, so.
Yeah.
But we do have other alders, and we also have the mayor. Do they have any questions or comments for our police department?
I did, if you noticed that the last couple of years, I've been working along with Lieutenant Strofe and stuff, and we were able to purchase a few more of the speed boards and stuff, and they kind of went over like gangbusters. People in the community started seeing them, and we got quite a few more requests for them. I believe they help us as far as numbers, because these boards that we use, they do give us information, so it keeps track of the numbers of vehicles that go through, the times of the day that speed is an issue. We were able to use them quite well, along with Dave Hansen and his equipment. We put in different areas for speed. Hopefully this year we can try to purchase a couple more of the speed boards, because the request for them was overwhelming. And we were trying to put them up in the neighborhood complaints for like a week to 2 weeks at a time to get results, so we knew what to do. And there's only so many you can put out. We got 6 of them, and once you start spreading them out, we started running really thin. So hopefully we can purchase a couple more, and hopefully maybe add another officer or 2 to the traffic enforcement unit to assist us with the complaints in the city.
Alder, looks like Dorf is raising her hand.
Is that all right, Mr. Chair?
You betcha.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you to the officers for doing this. Especially those boards are just great. I get so many requests for those, and I've been seeing more and more of them around the city. And I'm just really grateful that you guys thought to get some more of those speed boards. I don't know if they help forever, but I think they really help during the times that they're up. So I'm just very thankful to the Green Bay Police Department for the focus that you've had on reducing the traffic violations. It's a lot of work. Probably isn't a work that makes you feel warm and fuzzy when you need to hand out those tickets, but thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Anybody else who'd like to speak? Yep, go ahead, Alderman Scannell.
I just want to say thank you and congratulations, and really appreciate it. Keep up the great work, and if anything we can do as as alders, to help you out, don't be afraid to whisper into Alder Stevens' ears. He'll be a good megaphone to the rest of us. So thank you.
That's good to know. Thank you.
We do have a traffic complaint line, so any of the alders, it's 448-3212, and then that goes to a voicemail. We check that and update it daily. So the officers, like Officer Hubelmans, that are not in the traffic unit, they are able to access a list that shows the areas that have the complaints and then provide extra patrol, extra enforcement in those areas. So if your citizens are complaining to you directly, feel free to pass that on to us so we can kind of collaborate those complaints and then address them.
Thank you for sharing. That's good information for everybody. The general public can call that number too, or is that just for the alders?
Yep. We had some of those handouts for the Slow Down Green Bay. It had that number on, the cards that we use. We try to advertise. I think it's on the city website as well under the nuisance and complaints that they can call that number for any traffic related concerns or complaints or questions.
Good stuff. Anybody else want to comment here while we're talking about it?
Yeah, I'll jump in here and just express my gratitude as well. Appreciate Alder Stevens for inviting me in and a bunch of the alders here. I know it's something, as Mr. Citino said, that comes up oftentimes in neighborhoods, speeding and reckless driving. It's been a real emphasis for our police department, obviously, thanks to the investment of our council in the 2020 budget to build up our force and allow for the recreation of a traffic unit. So very grateful to the officers who've been working this detail, as well as Officer Hoovelman and our Lieutenant Sobiek. This is something that we hear a lot about in the mayor's office. I know the alders hear the same complaints. All citizens across the city deserve to use our streets safely, from young kids to senior citizens. So really appreciate our officers for answering that call and making this a point of emphasis in 2020. I think we still have some work to do. So glad to hear that PD and our officers are interested in making sure that this continues to be a priority in 21. So thanks again to the Alder Stevens and our commission for this work and to.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
I'll have a quick word here. Just want to say, of course,
Okay.
thank you as well for the great work. I can tell you, for the number of years that I've been here, I've seen that group when I first started was about the same size as it is right now. And because of funding or other reasons, it basically was almost dismantled, I believe. There was always a traffic lieutenant, but there was really no dedicated traffic enforcement officers. And now we're back up to that same level. And I can tell you that in our day-to-day lives here at the city, a lot of these problems, enforcement can take care of some of them. Engineering takes care of some of them. Educational efforts take care of some of them. But we all need each other. We can't work in our own little bubbles. We can't do this alone. So I can tell you that as an engineer, certainly need the services of the enforcement officers. So I just want to give you guys kudos to that. It's been great over the years working with you, and continue the great efforts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is anybody else who'd like to speak yet? If not, we will thank the officers one more time and let you get back to the streets there. Thank you, officers.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to under item E1. Lieutenant Sobiek, if you want to finish the general business report by the police department of the 2020 fourth quarter serious injuries and fatal crashes, you can.
Yeah, October was not a good month for fatal accidents for Green Bay. We had a total of 3 in 1 month period. All 3 were serious accidents that the subjects died a day or two after the actual accident happened in the hospital. The first one happened October 2nd at Main and Pecan Street. Elderly female, 91 years old, was driving. Failure to yield to a right-of-way while making a left-hand turn. She turned in front of another vehicle while she was pulling into a parking lot and got T-boned. Nothing major on scene, however, due to complications from the accident, the driver passed away a couple days later. The second one was West Mason Street frontage road at Packland Drive on October 24th, around 7:39 p.m. Pedestrian was hit on a car traveling westbound on the frontage road. As the pedestrian came down, crossing Mason Street down to the frontage road, he went out in front of another vehicle and got struck. Unfortunately, that male died again 4 days later in the hospital due to complications from the accident. And the third one was October 29th at about 10:33 p.m. A vehicle traveling westbound on the West Mason Street Bridge was driving recklessly, lost control, and hit a house at 615 South Norwood Avenue. As the vehicle spun out of control, the driver was not wearing a seatbelt and was ejected from the vehicle and sustained injuries. And again, about 4 or 5 days later after the accident, he died in the hospital as well. The only one where the alcohol was a factor for the driver was the one on Norwood, where the other two, alcohol was not a factor with the driver. But those were the three that we had in the fourth quarter. One question or one concern that came up when meeting with the Brown County Traffic Safety Commission was the Mason Street frontage road, the availability for pedestrian crossings at that location, because there are some bus stops along Mason Street, and the only crosswalks are at Packerland and at, oh, I'm drawing a blank on the road. I think it's Isabel.
Isabel's just down there, yes. Could be that or Hobart.
Well, Hobart doesn't cross Mason Street. The concern is not ample crossings for pedestrians that want to cross by Walmart or by the West Mason Casino to cross from the north side of Mason Street to the south side of Mason Street. So I don't know if that's something that we can look at, the possibility of adding a crosswalk somewhere in there to make it safer for pedestrians to cross Mason Street.
Yeah,
Do you know where the pedestrian was coming from that was hit on
He was coming from the area of the West Mason Street Casino.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I could probably add a couple things to that relative to Mason and Packerland. Number one, the intersection of Hinkle is actually in our capital improvement program this year, just for signal reconstruction only. But at that time, we'll be looking at adding in any sort of pedestrian crosswalks that we can fit in to the existing infrastructure. So that's going to be under design this spring. Relative to Packerland and Mason, it's my understanding, I believe either the state or the county is interested in looking at some safety grant money. I know that there's an application deadline due, I believe it's in February, and March is when I believe the application's due and or the selection takes place. But I don't think that Packerland Mason is going to be too far off the radar, because there's really three agencies that need to be involved to get all on board for that to happen. And sometimes because of multiple jurisdictions having their input on these projects, sometimes it can slow things down. But it's my understanding that this may be moving forward, I think, sooner than we realize. So just wanted to throw that out there. So just so that everyone knows, at least from an engineering perspective, that these aren't taken lightly, and there's definitely some thought going into resolving these.
Okay, any other comments from anybody else on the 2020 third quarter or fourth quarter serious injury and fatal crashes report from the police department? If not, I'll entertain a motion to receive, place on file.
So moved,
Motion to
Mr.
receive
Chairman.
and place on file.
Motion been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Two initial requests. Consideration of possible action on request by Tess Warner of Huth Street to remove the stop signs on Oakdale Avenue at the intersection of Huth Street to convert an ineffective three-way stop to a single stop intersection. Dave, I'll let you proceed there.
Sure, thank you. It's my understanding, based off some discussions with neighbors, and I learned this from Alder Gerlach, that there's been some concerns by the residents of motorists rolling through the stop signs at the intersection. I'm presuming that it would be the Oakdale approaches, since that's more of the through street, because it's really a T intersection. Being an all-way stop or multi-way stop condition, and being the intersection of two residential streets, I can only presume at this point in time, because the volumes are so low, that there are people that are in essence trying to make up for lost time. It's kind of a known in our industry that over time, when either intersections kind of evolve or devolve, I guess whichever way you want to look at it, there might be trip generators moving in and out, and just the whole dynamics of the neighborhood or businesses changes, and there just isn't as much traffic at these intersections. So sometimes the need goes away. So again, that's only a presumption on my part, but I've seen this many, many times in my years here at the city. So that's about the extent that I know. And I'm not really sure if this is, I believe this would probably be an evaluation or request potentially remove the three-way stop and maybe go to a one-way stop, for Cruz Street being the minor street stopping for Oakdale. But I could probably see that maybe being a more realistic form of intersection traffic control, barring anything that would ever come up in any engineering study that would be necessary to take place in order to change that.
Is Alder Gerlach on the meeting yet? Do you want to comment, Alder?
I don't really have anything to add. I think that Mr. Hansen has characterized the situation perfectly. It would be nice to have a study of it and see if perhaps it's a little bit over enforced.
Okay. Would you like a motion referred to staff, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Initially, if the intention is to change it, it would be required.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Second.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 3, consideration with possible action on the request of Alderman Scannell to move the truck route from North Broadway to McDonald Street between Mather and Alexander Streets. Alders, do you want to start or do you want Dave to start?
Well, whatever. Does Dave, do you want to go first? Or do you think what would be better here, Dave? Do you think what would be more helpful?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, I've already put my background into the packet, but why don't you start, Randy?
Okay. Well, this, as you know, Broadway is changing. The environment there is changing all up and down Broadway, and trucks have been a concern for a number of years here, all along Broadway, and even north of Mather. Those couple of blocks have seen a lot of development. NeighborWorks has done a lot of work in there, and we're seeing a lot more change in that environment with families moving in and becoming more residential and up and coming residential. And so I just wanted to check and see. We've been a few years ago. We did kind of do an informal study looking at some of the truck traffic and gathering some information, and just wanted to kind of do a formal one, especially now that we got those apartments there on the north, on the south end of Mather, and just get all our data together to see what the effects are, what the opinions are of people, what we could maybe do. I don't know if we can actually move the route, but even if we can't move the route, maybe there's some other steps we can take. I do know that, when the area I'm talking about, when there was street work done and the trucks were rerouted, it made a big difference, of course, for that those 2 blocks, residents there. And I don't know that it put that much of a hardship on the truckers. But so I was just hoping we could get a study going and get our ducks lined up. I know we're going to need to take this also to the county and so on. The residents in the area aware of that. We're just hoping to get the first step going to see if there's any problems from the city point of view and what they are and how they can be addressed. And then if that is all good, then go to the county. It seemed to be pointless to go to the county if the city has issues, but we weren't exactly sure, you know, without the study there, looking at it, if how we could go forward. So I was just hoping to get a study going. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder.
I do know there are some people here who wanted to speak on this too.
Oh, are there? Okay.
At some point.
Yep. How many, just one person or
I think there's two of us.
two of you? Okay, all right. Dave, do you have the information you need for the speakers?
What we'll need for the record, and you might as well just state it just because everything gets transcribed, is we'll just need full name and address of the speaker.
Okay, I have Bill, help me, I'm probably gonna say your last name wrong, but if you want to identify
Yes.
your name and address for Dave for the record, please, then you can
Yes,
speak
it's-
to the item.
Yes, it's Bill Kilp. And I'm at 719 North Broadway.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. Then you can go ahead and in a couple minutes, tell us.
Okay. I've been working on this most of the day and trying to cut it down as much as humanly possible, but if you can just bear with me, I'll
Sure.
try and sum up my story here. So we built a house with NeighborWorks on the corner of Broadway and James in May of 2017. And leading up to that, we had visited the site several times. And on a few occasions, we noticed trucks going up and down Broadway, but didn't think really much of it until we moved in. And after spending a couple days in our new house, we were amazed at how often those trucks drove past the house. So then I spent several months trying to figure out who they were, where they were coming from, and where they were going to. And the first thing I discovered that it is in fact a truck route that's coming from the Atkinson Exchange on Velp that goes down Mather to North Broadway, and then it eventually connects back up with the Atkinson's Exchange if you continue down Broadway to Prairie to Billsby to Hurlbut. We noticed that although most of the traffic was traveling between Mather and the end of North Broadway, and I'm just, these are just guesses, 20% of them were coming up and down James Street to and from McDonald, and they turn pretty much right in front of our house. So I soon realized that the majority of the trucks traveling north and south on Broadway are gas tankers going to and from the gas storage farms at the end of North Broadway. Interesting enough, if they eliminated Broadway altogether from their route and used the route of Prairie to Billsby to Hurlbut to travel between those storage farms and the Atkinson's Exchange, they would eliminate a half a mile from their route and still be traveling on the designated route. So after talking to various people in the neighborhood, the consensus was the truck traffic has actually increased considerably in the year before we moved in. After more investigation, I discovered that in May of 2016, Governor Walker signed an executive order declaring a statewide energy emergency following the temporary shutdown of the West Shore pipeline. To circumvent potential gas line and diesel shortages in the state, Walker's order waives various federal and state limitations on the number of hours petroleum carrier drivers can work weekly. Unfortunately, this turns out to be not so much a temporary solution, and it more than explains the increase on the traffic on Broadway. So in 2018, Mayor Smith visited our house to welcome us to the neighborhood, and he was taken aback with the truck traffic and the noise that it generated. He had to pause several times while a truck passed before he can continue what he was saying. He suggested I meet with his assistant, Celestine Jeffries, to initiate some sort of action towards resolving the issue. After several discussions with Celestine and Randy Scannell, our alderman, a truck study was done, And the results of the study show that on an average, there's approximately one truck every 3 to 5 minutes that travels between Mather and Alexander on Broadway, and even more between James and Broadway if you count the traffic coming from James Street. So as far as rerouting the portion of the Broadway truck route to McDonald, this would all but eliminate the truck traffic on the 4 residential blocks of Broadway between Mather and Alexander. While it does add 2 turns to the route, no doubt, both of those turns would be in non-residential areas, so the environmental concerns with increased emissions from stopping, starting, and the noise from this activity and the traffic in general would all be diverted to industrial areas. As Randy pointed out, this was actually done last summer due to some road construction on North Broadway, and that resulted in a detour to McDonald and the exact route we're discussing. At the time, my wife was working at NEW. There were no issues whatsoever reported by anybody at NEW. Most didn't even notice it. My guess is because most of the traffic or the truck traffic went the other way that I was suggesting that cut off a half a mile from their route in the first place. So probably there was much less traffic. Regarding safety issues, since we moved in, NeighborWorks built another house across the street from us. Previous to us, the house next door was remodeled from NeighborWorks. But during the construction of the new house, we noticed a considerable increase in new families moving into our neighborhood. Most, if not all, with young children. So between the increased pedestrian traffic, which includes elderly with walkers, people walking with strollers, dog walking, bike and skateboard traffic, and kids playing basketball in the front yards, there's considerable safety issues to consider, including the danger of the oncoming traffic, the pollution they generate, not to mention the noise factor, particularly from the trucks rounding the corner on James to Broadway. Incidentally, this traffic is 24/7, 365 days a year. Lastly, while it may be true that the past studies evaluating removing Broadway from the truck system have failed, that was then, this is now. This neighborhood has grown and improved considerably, even in the 3 years that we've lived here. The entire point of building, renovating, improving the neighborhood of North Broadway is to draw more families and people of all ages in the area. Due to the truck traffic, I've spoken to several new people in the neighborhood that regret moving down here and are considering relocating if something's not done. Thank you immensely for your time.
Thank you. I can tell you're pretty thorough, so it's a very good report of what's happening in your neighborhood there. So thank you for sharing with the committee tonight here.
Yeah, I'm pretty OCD and anal, so and I don't give up.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Was there somebody else who wanted to speak to this item, Alderman Scannell?
I
You're
believe so.
muted.
Is she here, Bill? Christy?
Hi there, I'm here.
Okay, I heard a voice. I don't have you on my screen. So it's Christy,
Here we
I
go.
think I heard the name. So Christy, if you want to give your name and address for the record, and then you can go ahead, please.
Sure, my name's Christy Van Remordo, and I'm a resident at 715 North Broadway here in Green Bay. And
You need her to spell the name, Dave. Are you good with that? Or
Yeah, if you could, please, Christy.
sure, it's Kristi, and my last name is VANREMORTEL.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. You can go ahead, Christy.
Sure. We bought our house back in 2016 during the summertime. And the first summer that we lived there, we really enjoyed ourselves. It was peaceful. It was quiet. There wasn't a lot of truck noise. So we were able to like hang out on our front porch and have conversation. And I felt safe enough to even like let my kids go sometimes like cross Broadway and whatnot. And I don't know what happened after that summer, but the trucks started increasingly coming around that corner. And part of my concern is when our house in 2016, when we purchased it, it had just been renovated by NeighborWorks. They even reinforced the basement. So the basement was all good. Everything had been replastered, repainted in our home. And currently our house is covered in stress cracks. We probably have 6 or 7 of them that are large and very noticeable. And every time that the trucks roll through, you can like feel our house shake, especially like if they don't stop, if they're coming southbound on Broadway to take that right onto Mather, they don't stop or slow down. So like they hit the corner super hard and then they compression brake as they go. And it literally just shakes our entire home. And it starts at probably like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it goes until all day, like 7, 8 o'clock at night, where these trucks are just nonstop. We don't even spend the first floor of our home because it is so obnoxiously loud for how, like when the trucks are passing through. And they're getting worse, and they speed, they travel at high rates of speed. And we have like families living inside of these homes and they don't brake at that corner. So when they're hitting that corner, it just takes one of them to lose control and they're going to wipe out our entire block with the way that they drive. So on top of the sound and the noise and the constant shaking and rattling of my home, they're going to cause an accident and they're going to hurt somebody or hurt our whole block with their disregard for while they're driving for our neighborhood. It's obnoxious, and we are one of the families that is looking to move if the trucks are not corrected. So that's all I really have to say.
Okay, thank you for sharing comments. Anybody else who wants to speak to this item? If not, we'll have Dave, you can take it from there then, and from the city's perspective.
Sure. Just real quick reminder too about Robert's Rules of Orders about opening and closing the floor. Just so everyone knows that, basically the comment period is there, and this isn't really an exchange of information until commissioners open and close the floor. So just wanted to throw that out there. But getting to the background, I did include some information in the packet. As was stated by Bill and by Christy, that this segment of North Broadway is and has been on the heavy truck route system for some time. It's also part of Brown County's and the Port of Green Bay's oversized overweight OSOW system, which connects to DOT's truck routes OSOW system as well. So that goods can be transported to and from the port. More specifically, in this case, the North Port. As you know, there's 2 ports as development occurs. So the road is also part of what they consider, it's a second type of system. They call it a high clearance truck load route to and from the port. So specifically actually on James Street, which is, I guess, we had proof of that in the earlier discussion relative to some of the turning movements that we heard Broadway to James Street. There was a conversation back in, I believe it was 2017 and 2018 when the county had actually approached the city. So not only they approached engineering, but they also approached the mayor's office. And I think some of these discussions kind of took place at the same time that that Bill was making reference to then Mayor Schmidt about some of the truck noise and truck traffic, and that this change in shipment based off of Governor Walker's administration, how this is making a change. So this is all kind of occurring at the same time. But we had a meeting with the county, including the mayor, about this. And in essence, what they told us is that they had no other way to get in there other than the route that they had shown to us, and ultimately is in that plan that you can actually find online if you go right to the port's website. So I guess bottom line, when it comes down to any of this discussion, I mean, I heard Alder Scannell talk about let's have another truck study and so forth, and which can happen, you know, because we've looked at various locations of Broadway. But I guess, you know, before we get too deep into this, I really think that it would behoove the group and the city to really have a discussion with the county and the port, because I honestly think that it would be a lot of time spent on a truck study. And if we come back and they really say, hey, look, I mean, there really is no other alternative. I mean, we really need to find that out, I think, before taxpayers and staff start spending any considerable time moving forward with a truck study. With that, and some of the other information, and again, you can look to some of the background that I put in the packet, but you know, we've looked at some of these in the past. I mean, I just want to remind you that, you know, these truck studies do involve a lot of data collection. I know Alder Johnson, you know, he was involved with the one that we did south of there, as well as Randy. And they can take up quite a bit of time to do this, but we understand that there's also some concerns out there, and you know, what better way to justify the concerns than to, you know, have the data to back that up. I know there was reference to this alternate route. One was with respect to it was used as a alternate route, more specifically Canadian National to do a crossing repair of North Broadway near Alexander, and indeed the proposed route was used. Yeah, it was temporary, obviously. I'm not aware of any complaints. I mean, I didn't necessarily receive any from anybody, but you know, it was made reference to you know, that this would go past the new community shelter, and not certain if they've had a lot of time to really consider this or ponder this, but I do know that they do have a lot of vehicle trips. They do have a lot of pedestrian trips, and you know, it is a transitional living facility, so you know, there's a lot of you know, move-ins, move-outs, and just people probably going to the convenience store at the intersection of Mather Broadway and things like that. So I mean, I think a lot of pedestrian traffic is actually using that area where this truck route is actually being proposed. And as mentioned before, I'll just leave this in closing here, that past time file and available for anyone to look at. It's all public information, and if anyone wants to see that, be more than happy to provide that. But a lot of the issues that were really brought up in those studies, in addition to this OSOW Port and County item that I made mention of, they definitely still exist today. So they're just as relevant as they were in the past.
I mean,
Yes, go ahead, Alder.
yeah, if what could come out of this would be that staff would, or the mayor's office, or both, would talk with the port and the county. I know there has been some talk with the county before, and I've gotten ambivalent, been kind of like a tennis ball back and forth. Oh, no, it's the city, no county, and you know, a hot potato there a little bit. But the last I heard from the county, because we brought in the county supervisor for the area, he seemed to think that the city could initiate the change. So that's why I wanted to see if, to make sure that we had all our ducks up to see if, you know, the new community and the new apartments there now and everything, how they would, you know, what they thought of all this. And I know, I thought some of this was going to take some time, certainly with COVID-19. I mean, when we did the study before, we did a lot of door knocking. And with COVID-19, you know, we might have to flat a little bit for a while. I just wanted to get the ball rolling. But if the city could check one more time with the Port Authority, because things have changed there in that area. And we do have the data now from rerouting to look at, that maybe the county and the port would be all right with that, making this more an industrial route than through a residential. So if we could have those conversations, and then from there possibly go on to check in with new community and the new apartments there and everything, see how they adjust to it, what they think of all that, and get a plan together, see if we could go from there. Does that sound reasonable, Dave?
Yeah, I think so. You know, as I stated early in my my talk was that, you know, the port and the county are kind of the big ones out there right now. I mean, if you can get them on board, that's probably the biggest hurdle at this point in time.
Okay.
So potentially maybe a recommendation or a motion to refer to staff to have a discussion with the port and the county to if they have options, just to bring it to their attention and have them, I guess, weigh in on an official opinion.
Sounds to me a good idea. Do we have
Chair?
any other comment? Yeah, go ahead, Alder Johnson.
Thank you. You know, whether this be directed at Alder Scannell or Dave Hansen here, you know, I think it was back in 2017, maybe 16, when I was just the executive director of On Broadway. You know, we had been talking about relocation of the truck route along Broadway. And I think this section was also part of that discussion at that time. And, you know, for various reasons at the time, the city council didn't want to support, I believe it was called the point of origin and point of destination study. And then the you know, discussion kind of just ended there. And so I don't want to confuse this issue by tying this in, but at the same time, if it is a more global discussion to be had, then I would suggest that that be introduced, because, you know, I think we need to kind of migrate beyond certainly you have to talk about economics and other things of that nature, but to me, this has kind of evolved into a quality of life discussion, not only for our residential neighborhood over there, but that whole Broadway corridor. And again, I don't want to confuse the issues. If those two things can be handled separately, I'm happy to do that. It was my intent to bring back the truck route discussion once the shipyard and more of the residential housing, particularly in the rail yard area, have evolved. Because I think it changes that dialogue a little bit. So that's maybe, Dave, then where I'm looking to you. Does it make more sense to just continue to focus exclusively on this area and leave that as an independent discussion point? Makes more sense to combine the two.
Well, I think that they could be handled separately in the fact that I think the initial project, and to clarify what that other study that council ended up not approving of, that was an origin destination study we were going to have done by Streetlight Analytics. But a lot of that discussion, and then some of it even has come up now in the shared streets relative to moving the truck out, because, you know, obviously in this case, we've already got a proposal on the table about where to move it. And with the other discussion with, you know, Broadway more south of Mather and even south of Dalston Street, that alternate route involved Ashland Avenue. And again, we start getting, it's almost the opposite, where you have, you know, commercial district right now, and then you'd be moving a truck route into a residential neighborhood. I mean, you almost have a flip-flop situation. Because I can imagine that there would be, you know, residents maybe of similar thought, like Mr. Kilt and Christie, that they don't want that truck route on their street. So they kind of, I mean, they're similar, and the only common factor I think of that you have North Broadway there. But I mean, you potentially, let's just say if they both are approved, you could have a truck route that gets detoured, say Clinton, north to Ashland, goes over to Mather Street, and then continues there to McDonald, then to Alex. I mean, it's really starting to take a serpentine type of a jog. So I do see them as separate issues, but now that I'm starting to think of it, I kind of see how, if they both were approved, how you could really have a pretty complex truck route. And where right now it's just, you know, you have a pretty simple, straightest path for these trucks.
So maybe my request then, Dave, would be that as the discussion on this item continues to unfold, if you see a decision that could potentially impact the dialogue around Broadway district truck route, then let's engage in that conversation. For now, let's leave it out of it. Let's keep it simple. Let's address the immediate need in that residential neighborhood, and until a time, like I said, that a decision might impact a greater discussion. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense, actually. And, you know, if the commission so decides tonight to, you know, just move forward with a referral to staff to get the counties and the port's official opinion, that'll reveal a lot of information. And if we start moving forward, by all means, Brian, we'll keep you in close loop on all of the activities that take place and how they may actually involve your area.
Great. Yeah, and I just don't want making the scope larger to be an impediment to solving the imminent problem, which is being, you know, put forth before you today. So I like that strategy. Thanks.
All right, let's move along here then. Do I hear a motion to refer this matter to staff for study?
I'll make that motion.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4, consideration of possible action on request by Alderman Johnson to establish a no parking zone on the west side of 12th Avenue from 3rd Street to West Mason Street.
If I may just jump in, thank you. I'm gonna bug out. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Randy, did you want me to start on this one?
Sorry, just wanted to say thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave, on item 4 then.
Sure. Item E4, right now there currently is a no parking here to corner zone on the west side of 12th Avenue. It's relatively short, 110 feet. So, you know, with driveway, I believe it might be a driveway in there. So, you know, that's like 3 or 4 vehicles, but it is about 1/3 of the block. So if this is approved, basically you'd be extending it past 3 residential properties. Certainly we have Alderman Johnson here on this meeting, and it would be great to hear from him on what the reason and impetus is behind this request.
Sure. So this was a request that came to me from the neighbors in that area because they're seeing an abnormally high volume of parking that is occurring on their side of the street there. And it's creating a couple of problems. One is vehicles that are infringing on the driveways in that area. So I believe, Dave, I think I had emailed you on this. It was what the setback requirement was. Vehicles who's are constantly backed right up to the driveway and certainly not meeting the setback. And this is not like this is not an occasional thing. This is happening very frequently. And I had worked with Chris Pierlot as well on some enforcement measures in that area. But the other component is that it's parking in front of the cars are parking in front of trash cans. So trash cans aren't being picked up regularly. So it's just creating a lot of problems over there. And a lot of it's driven by the restaurant that exists on the corner there. And then of course the tenants that live up above, because they're playing a lot of musical chairs, I think, with some of the vehicles over there to try to free up the lot for some of their commercial traffic. And then they're directing it over in that area. And then they're not parking in compliance. And it's just creating other residual problems. So we're looking to simply extend that no parking condition to 3rd Street. All of the neighbors on that side have requested that this take place. And we've done this in other areas. You know, I think of one in particular in my district where this had historically been a problem over on Oakland Avenue. And it was done to try to deter or disperse maybe some of that high volume of parking traffic that was creating problems. So this wouldn't be unprecedented for us to do something like this. And again, it's something that is being requested by the neighbors in that area.
So do you have a consensus of the neighbors? Because they're going to lose their on-street parking, right? So
Yes.
They're all good with that they don't come back in 6 months and say, you took my parking away. And
Yep, all three of them have been, all 3 of them have indicated that they want to see this.
are they own homeowners there, or are they?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other thoughts, Dave, on this one, or?
I mean, it sounds like everyone's on board, and, you know, I placed my official recommendation of, you know, staff really doesn't have really an official response on this. It's kind of sounds like a neighborhood issue that needs to get resolved. I'll just add, just so everyone is clear on this, when it comes down to garbage pickup, our operations staff does keep track of garbage that isn't picked up, and they do make second rounds. So I just want to just throw that out there. Not that, doesn't mean that there won't be someone a second time around that's blocking it. It kind of sounds like maybe there's a lot of people doing that. I guess there's also another benefit. I mean, I'm just thinking of a recent project, this Mason Street project with all the traffic signal work. There is a lot of that is going through that intersection. So, I've seen it in other areas, like Brian was kind of saying, where we just open it up for a complete block. And that way, if there's people trying to pass other people that are trying to take a left turn, like in this case, someone's like a truck's trying to go southbound, take a left to go over the Tillman Bridge, then there's people going around them. And it does make it a little bit safer for people that are going southbound through out of the intersection. So yeah, I can definitely see that there could be some benefit as well, traffic wise.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move approval for number 4.
Okay, motion been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration of possible action on request of Alder Johnson to remove the 2 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday parking zone on the east side of South Broadway, south of Mason Street.
Did you want to go first, Brian, on this one?
Sure. So there's currently a 2-hour parking condition. This is an area along South Broadway in front of Rockabilly's, Rum Runners, Public House, Bourbon Room. So those are the bars. There really are no other. And I've talked to all 4 of those business owners, and they've all requested that this be removed. This is an area where the 2-hour parking condition exists. When you think about why a lot of times these exist, it's to encourage, or you don't want cars parked there, you don't want employees parking there. You want to keep that available and open for patrons of the business. Look at those types of businesses. They are oftentimes working with a clientele, especially if you go down there for a Packers game or something, you're going to inherently be parked there for more than 2 hours. So there's no other residential properties or commercial properties that would be impacted by this other than those in that stretch. And again, they've all requested that it be removed. So that's the request I have before you today.
Dave, do you have anything on why that zone was put in there? At what point or any?
I mean, it's been in since I've been traffic engineer, so it's been in
Okay.
for definitely a couple of decades. You see a lot in the areas by the downtown that are not metered. I mean, that's always going to be the next level of regression when it comes down to parking zones and time limited parking. So my presumption is that there's just a lot of commercial businesses there, and there was just a lot of people competing for those spots, or I'm going to presume employees parking there all day and not having any available on-street parking for customers. But it appears that based off of Alderman Johnson's feedback from the businesses that that they're fine with lifting this. The only thing I would say is, I just hope that all of those businesses are aware that sometimes this does come back, and that's why I guess why we have 90-day trials. But that could be an effect of this. Once you get rid of it, that you will start to see other people parking potentially all day, and it impacts their customers' on-street parking availability. But again, those kind of things do come out through 90-day trials. It's really up to, but it sounds to me like there's definitely some movement on the part of the people that are working and living there, that this will be something of a benefit. The only thing I wanted to add is I do know, and again, this goes outside of the time frame of the 2-hour zone that's currently there, but there is, I believe, in front of those bars that are just south of the Tillman, that there is I forget what the exact time limit is on it, but it's more of a no stopping or standing zone during more of the bar close time. And I think that it was of similar nature that this was brought forward by the police department. I'm sure some of you remember when Washington Street, for example, South Washington, North Washington, some of those areas, there was a no stopping or standing zone. that was established. So that no stop understanding that's there is really not much different. So we wouldn't be looking at obviously getting rid of that, I'm presuming, and just so that they does get approved to make it that zone is staying. That's not really part of the request.
Mr. Chairman, I would move number 5.
Okay, a motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 6. Consideration on request of Alderman Net to review and potentially change the speed limit 35 zone on Hillcrest Drive from West Point Road to West Mason Street.
Yeah, see, we do not have, I thought we had District 12 at first, but then apparently that was Randy. So we do not have Alderman Brunette with us today, but this is kind of following on the coattails of some of the items that we had with Hillcrest come up since its reconstruction. So as many of you know, this summer it was reconstructed, and oftentimes what we do find out on a lot of these roadways, especially the ones that were in pretty poor shape, that speeds naturally go up. You have a nice smooth surface of roadway, and motorists have a tendency to take advantage of that and seem to travel at speeds that they feel so desired to. So this is probably, I'm going to presume, similar in nature to that. And I do know this area, you know, I traveled it quite a bit, and I can tell you that the roadway surface is significantly better. So it does not surprise me. Now that speed limit south of West Point is 25 miles an hour. It sounds to me, I mean, in the discussions that I had actually cursory with the alders, that they are looking to see if this could get dropped to a 25 mile an hour speed zone. So I think we all pretty much know the drill. State statute requires at any speed zone modifications require support of a speed study to be conducted. That way, at least the engineering aspects are all taken into consideration for that. So if the commission so desires to go forward with the alder's request, a study would need to happen so that a referral to staff for a speed study, Hillcrest Drive from West Point to West Mason Street, would be needed.
Mr. Chairman, so move.
Motion made, second for a speed study? Or do I hear a second for a speed study?
Yeah, second.
Okay, motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
The only thing I'll add on that, Matt, if I can, since we're in the middle of winter, that these studies don't start until we have all the snow off the roadway, because our equipment does not allow it to be in the road during winter. So just for the record, just so everyone knows, that the data collection would not be able to take place until probably sometime in April at earliest.
So noted. For sharing. That's okay. Moved to item 7, referred back from study, consideration for possible action on request for Alderman Vanderleest to establish a 4-way stop condition on Parkwood Drive at Fawn Lane.
If you want me to go forward with this, since again, Vanderleest is not present at the meeting, so would you like me to continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. I did report, again, this is just like the speed studies, we accompany all changes in intersection traffic control with an official study. I'm presuming most, if not all of you, have reviewed that. I will just go over the highlights of that study. What we have is really a connector between, it's really functions more like a neighborhood, local street, collector street. Really every street tees into it, and it connects to Packline Drive, which is a county highway, and also to Hazelwood Lane, which is a county highway. None of the intersections within that whole neighborhood actually even have any intersection control that tee into this intersection. You'll see some of the photographs that I had taken and included in the study pretty much show that sight distances are good. And there's that one corner, it's kind of coming out of that cul-de-sac that does have a couple of bushes, but which as most drivers know, that even if you approach an intersection and you feel uncomfortable with where you are, you can creep forward and take a look. And after you do that, you can clearly see up the hill with plenty of sight distance. Crash history, there were no crashes to be reported within the last 5 years, which is what we like to look back at the 5-year history. No news is very good news in this situation. When it comes down to vehicle and pedestrian traffic, we have a traffic count that was included as part of this. The traffic volumes were significantly low. As a matter of fact, I don't even think some of the daily totals even met what some of the thresholds would be for an always stop control condition. So it's pretty low. I mean, even though I did mention that it's a local street that kind of functions as a local collector for all of those side streets, the volumes are still very significantly low. So with that, we've got no crash history. Got really no reason to add the stop signs. I mean, I'm presuming this has to do with some speeding potentially, because I do know that there is a downhill grade as you're going from Hazelwood to Packerland. But when I did talk with 2 of the people in this area. I mean, when this first came up, I was able to contact 2 residents that actually live north of the intersection. Actually, both of them are Fawn Lane, and so it wasn't really a matter of speeding on Parkwood at all. This is more that they were noticing that the kids in the summertime and outside, some of them were on skateboards, and there's no sidewalks in that area, so they're in the street. And I think they were more concerned about that and some of the behavior. And as a matter of fact, when I talked to the one lady resident that was concerned about this, that she was kind of saying, well, she thought that they were at least some of these skateboarding kids that were somewhat, I guess you'd say, reckless in their behavior and just kind of cruising through without really taking in mind that there could be vehicles using the intersection. So with all this information, I really did not see a good reason to establish a 4-way stop, because 4-way stops are usually, I should say, their main primary function is to assign right away at an intersection where you have a lot of volume. You may have a crash problem you're trying to correct, those sorts of things. And we didn't find any of that as part of this. So we don't see any reason to make an approval recommendation. As a matter of fact, I'll make more of a strong recommendation to deny the request. I think actually you'd probably have more problems introduced if one was put in.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to deny the request.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Motion been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Down to terminations. Do you want to group some of these together, Dave, and give us a Reader's Digest version?
I sure can. Fern Lane at Bader Street, that is kind of on its own. Request to begin with, and heard no negative feedback on this request, so I would make a recommendation to move that forward to ordinance. Number 9, west side of Irwin. Oh, this is over by the former private school, and this was more or less to clear up some areas on the street for some staff that's still parked there. So that seems to be working just fine. So I'll make a recommendation to move that forward to approval. We have the Mills Street and Henry Street, items 10 and 11. Those are associated. This was to create a loading zone for Stillman Brewing, so that we had to remove regular no parking in order to add a 15-minute loading zone, working well. I'd make a recommendation to move that forward to ordinance, those 2. We have number 12 is Ricky Drive at August. Again, this is This was actually brought up by the police department, and engineering staff supported the recommendation. So I'll make a recommendation to move the one-way yield on Ricky to August, move that forward to ordinance. And lastly, the no parking zone on both sides of Hillcrest from Haven Place to West Mason. That was my recommendation and my request simply because of the change of that roadway and the ability of, or I should say lack of ability for motorists to safely park there. We were seeing motorists crossing a double yellow center line, which is never a good situation. So I would say en masse items 8 through 13 should all move forward to ordinance.
Mr.
Your
Chairman,
motion to approve? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move down to F2. Report by the traffic engineer on the intersection control evaluation of Dalston Street at Gray Street.
Okay, I don't see Alder Sawyer on the call here. So, and again, this is just informational, but I'm hoping that everyone had the opportunity to look at this study. Again, I will try to, for sake of time, presume that you did, and just really touch on the highlights here of this intersection. As many of you know, it is a signalized intersection. It's actually of two minor arterial streets, and I will probably use that term loosely. I think that's more by nature of how they were at one time, but as noted in the study, there's been some significant changes in the city, predominantly the interchange closure of 41 and Dalston Street, which over time we've seen a drop in traffic volumes, not only on Dalston Street, but including this intersection. I was asked by our engineering project development folks about what I wanted to do with this intersection and the signal, because their project was going to touch this intersection, basically the north leg of it. And there is signal equipment that my division, we own and maintain it on behalf of the citizens. And so I looked at that and said, well, sure, let's reconstruct it. But started putting my thinking cap on and said, you know what, probably would not be a horrible idea to try to reverse engineer this by looking at least minimum the traffic signal warrants that is in the manual and uniform traffic control devices to determine whether or not a signal is warranted. So you kind of apply that in reverse. The way that the METCD states it is that a traffic signal should, let's say one does not exist. At an intersection, you want to put a signal in. The METCD says you can look at these warrants, whichever ones are applicable, and if it meets one or more, you should consider a signal installation. It doesn't say you meet one yet you have to. It just says you should consider. If you look at that kind of in a reverse engineering perspective, if you would look at a signalized intersection, and if it does not meet any, you should probably be questioning why the signal is even there. It could have outlived its useful life, and potentially regressing back to other forms of traffic control would benefit the intersection. So the next thing I did is I looked at, see if there were any issues that I thought potentially were happening there that maybe the signal maybe is contributory towards. And I did find, we do collect all this information just like the police department does. And we look at some of these and try to identify patterns. And I started finding a pattern at this intersection of angled crashes. Now, this is completely opposite of what a traffic signal is supposed to do. Traffic signals are actually supposed to stop this type of behavior. So this really put up a red flag for me. And so I wanted to look at all-way stop warrants and a little bit more into the crashes. So looking at the all-way stop warrant, it did meet it. So we're kind of in that position, where a all-way stop would work, and a signal is probably, it's gone past its useful life here. And looking at right angle type crashes, an all-way stop would actually, in my opinion, you'd see a reduction in that. Simply the fact that you would have to stop everybody. And of course, just like any change in traffic control, there's going to be some training of the motorists that needs to take place. Fortunately, with a traffic signal, we can emulate an always stop control using a red flash. That being said, that's actually one of the recommendations I'm making, and this is a predominant reason I wanted to put this as informational only, because I'm not looking for any action per se by the Traffic Commission, but rather I kind of want to get this on everyone's plate, wanted to get it out into the public that Public Works is looking at conducting a trial of an always stop here by simply changing the signal operation. This is really no different than we do this kind of stuff all the time when it comes down to construction projects, or if certain things are happening where we just need to change the operations. It's really all part of our day-to-day duties here at Public Works. So the motion, or like I said, there is no motion I'm looking for. I just want to let you know we are looking at this. We're probably going to be pointing out signs, going to a red flash. We want to study this to find out if there's something that we're not seeing as engineers that potentially could become an issue if this would happen. It's better to emulate the situation now than to start making permanent changes and then all of a sudden finding out it was the wrong decision. So with that being said, just wanted to put that out there. If there's any questions on the study or the report or anything like that, I'm here right now to answer any questions, or you know, if you have questions after the meeting, I'll be more than happy to take them.
No questions.
No questions. All right, we'll move on. No questions then. Move on to item 3 there, which is the next meeting, Monday, February 15th. So it doesn't seem like that far away, but short month in February. So with that, I don't have anything else. I would entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody has.
I have one comment.
Yep.
Chief Smith was planning on joining the meeting tonight, but he was unable to. But he did want to thank the committee for recognizing the police officers tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted to share that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Matt with the clerical. For the record, for E18 through E13, who seconded the motion? The video skipped out.
E18 or E8, you mean, through 13?
8
Yes.
through 13.
E, okay. I'm sure Dan probably did, didn't you, Dan?
I think I made the motion. I think Craig seconded, or vice versa.
Does that help you, Matt?
Yeah, I can confirm that it was Dan that made the motion, and I believe I have it as Dan first.
I think I seconded that one. I seconded one of them. I think that was the one I seconded.
Okay.
We'll give it to
We'll
Mike.
give you credit. All right, anything else from the good for the cause here tonight? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Meet again next Monday, February 15th. Motion been made. Did I hear a second? I'm sure I did. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned, gentlemen. Take care, and we'll see you in a month. A little less than a month, probably. So
Yep.
Good. Thank
Stay
you.
be
safe.
safe.